myself into daylight here. Hello, daylight. Oh, and all of a sudden my eyes start to water. Okay, cool. Live TV, ladies and gentlemen, live TV. Anyway, how you been, Willow?
I'm good. How about you?
Like I said, just getting ready, counting down some stuff, and right now I'm trying to get myself one more freelance gig. I kind of feel like I should get one more before the month's up. Done good this month. I got some stuff coming up next month too. Already. I just want it's the funny thing about freelancing is you're always on the hustle. You're always looking for work.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing for the last, like I said, this month in particular, I did all my contracted work by the 22nd. So it's
Oh, wow.
odd to have this kind of downtime, but I also got stuff like my comics to work on right now. So that might be my focus, but I also realize it's a weird balance. You have to realize what's important and what's in front of you, what needs to be done. But at the same time, you have to keep moving because if you don't
Yeah.
keep moving, you don't keep money. So it's a weird balance. And that's where I'm at right now.
Well, as long as you're keeping yourself busy, that's all that matters.
I always I'm working more as a freelancer than I ever did working for a company, and I'm not. But it's just a different kind of work. It's hustle, advertise, this, write stuff. When I write stuff, do my jobs, whatever they may be, and repeat.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. So it's been the hardest thing has been learning how to discipline yourself,
Hmm.
which is a good thing.
Yep.
And then the other part of I saw a quote from an athlete, and I thought it was very apt. You either have discipline or you have despair. So I kind of believe that because a lot of people that don't have structure don't usually have the ability to, they lose their confidence because it's really hard to, if you have no structure, you don't know where to go or what's up and down. And I think the hardest thing about being on your own is you got to learn how to build a structure for yourself.
Yep. I hear you. I feel that as well. I try to keep myself busy as much as possible myself. So it's
Well, what do you keep yourself busy doing at this point?
well, between work, I have two podcasts on the run right now. I am co-host of Back of the Cereal Box on Saturday mornings, and I also host Cryptid Crunch every other Sunday.
Okay. So basically, you got two shows always going.
Yep.
So last time we talked, you still have the same day job?
No, I got fired from Starbucks.
Yeah. Okay.
uh, yeah, it was. I was trying to find myself a full time job because Starbucks wasn't giving me enough hours, and with that, I was trying to maneuver my hours to suit the hotel that I was working at.
Which is totally fine. Listen, you gotta do what's right for you.
And yeah, I totally got screwed over by Starbucks.
Ha 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 ha.
And yeah, they my boss literally took me off the schedule, so I had to pick up hours here and there from my coworkers, and I was using my holiday hours to make up for the lack of pay. Uh, this happened for a whole month, and then I get pulled to. I get asked to come in and have a chat, and she fired me, and I'm just like, really?
Well, that might have been a blessing in disguise.
It totally was. Now I'm working at a pet store, so I get to be around cats and dogs and fish. It's a whole different. It took me a while to get used to the not having to clean up, not having to uh, be in a service industry nonsense. Always quick and yeah, it took me so long to get used to, while it's still a retail environment, it's a totally relaxed environment.
Yep.
I'm just
Oh,
like,
so,
is
so,
this
so
normal?
you struggle to relax. You were struggling to relax for like the first month or so.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, I should be doing more. And
Yeah.
you're like, why am I? And then they're like, no, this is fine. It's like, and you're like, weird. This is foreign. Like, what? There's no pressure. Why is there no pressure? It's because some jobs don't
Exactly.
work.
I'm like waiting for, the boss to tell me, oh, you should be, doing this, that, and,
No.
cleaning the shelves, reorganizing this and that. And I'm just like, I just get, here's a box of stuff to put away. Uh, Make sure you do it by the end of your shift. Have fun. And it's just like, uh,
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing, right? It's all about sometimes. So my side gig, it's not my regular job, is I work at McMahon Stadium or the Saddle Dome. Right now, man, it's a bit of a gong show. I'm not going to go into details why, because it's an older building. It's a much older building, so it comes with its set of problems that are very unique to the fact that it is such an old building. Saddle Dome's older too, but is an old building too, but it's a little bit more compact, so it's a little easier to organize. Um, but there are points on the day I don't have to do much. I sit in a chair and chill, and that's it.
yeah.
That's a job. Like I'm getting paid to wait, and what I've come to and again, someone listening to this will be going, well, you're no, they're paying me for my time. They are asking me to sit here and wait and be until I'm needed, because that's the nature of the job.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the nature of the job. And sometimes I'm needed a lot. Sometimes I'm not needed much at all. Sometimes it'll be somewhere in the middle of that. Like a third, but the thing is, there's downtime because, you know, that's the nature of the job. There's a gap once everything is basically done, that we all just chill for a little bit, right? And that's just the way it is. And someone listening to me is like, it sounds like an easy job. It is. That's why I'm there. If it wasn't easy, I wouldn't do it at this point in my life, because it's not worth. I only have so much energy. I only have so much time. I have more important things to do. And that sounds, and again, someone listens like, you can't. Yes, you can. It's actually that simple. Like, bang. The important thing when whatever you choose to do with your life, whatever that might be, what are your priorities?
My priorities are my family.
Yeah.
I have a husband and I have cats. I don't have any children, but my cats are my children. So
your cats are your kids.
Yeah.
Are you one of those? Are you one of those people that dress your cats up?
No, I don't think my cats would appreciate the abuse.
Yeah. Well, the pet, not to knock your industry too much, but I think the thing that frightens me the most with the pet sections of any store is you realize about 2 minutes in, these aren't for the animals. Like, you realize that, look, you have that epiphany when you're in that aisle. You look at this shit. It's like,
it's cute seeing dogs in like little T-shirts and whatnot, and it's funny when cats are being spayed and neutered, and people put them in like little baby onesies, but not. I don't know. I can't see my cats walking around in people clothing. I don't know. That's just...
No, I can't. I can't do it either. It's just like, it's just one of those. You know what? I'm gonna let the cat recover on its terms. I mean, I'd be a little pissed off if I was a cat if I lost my ability to do that. So I might give him a few days just to kind of like make peace with the fact that licking his balls is never gonna be the same ever again. And
my cats don't go outside; they play out on the porch, and that's good enough for them.
Yeah, and some cats are like that. Some cats are go out there and just do their thing.
Yeah.
Right, and that's just the way it is. So I mean so you got to kind of, the nature of the cat is a big part of the deal. Like, I had a cat that just would find ways to escape the house. Like, would just come up with his own ways to do it.
Yep.
Right.
I just get so worried, but because I live in a neighborhood that has a main highway, and our streets can get pretty busy, especially around rush hour. And I just get afraid. I just have this image in my head of, looking for my cat and finding it dead on the road. I just, my cats don't go outside for that reason.
Well, it's weird because some cats can do it no problem. Like
Yeah.
like they are independent animals, and you have to kind of, okay, if you're out like in the middle of nowhere, like there's a small town, there's cats outside everywhere. It's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
And they like I said, they know what they're doing. Like I said, are there risks? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean but that's life, right? But I remember the first time my cat was outside, comes home with like a bird, like just he caught his first bird. It's just like,
Oh,
yeah, and he gave it to us, kind of like
oh, a little gift.
yeah, yeah. So it's something that needs to be understood. It's like some animals do just fine on their own outside,
Yeah.
right? So it's you know it's one of those deals where going into this, doing this, that um to each their own. I'm not a big fan of the clothes and then the toys very much because honestly, again, you look at it. Once I worked at a Walmart and saw the pet food store for what it was. Their pet food section's like, it's for kids, it's for adults that want kids.
Yeah.
They just feed into that. And it's like, oh, I understand. I'm not trying to disparage the rest of the industry.
Well, I laugh because now there's people on TikTok that walk around with their cat in baby slings, and I told my husband I'm going to get him one for one of our cats because she loves him. She's like right there all the time,
Oh, yeah.
snuggling up with it.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, some cats are very, very affectionate. Some cats aren't, right?
Yeah.
Some know how to play the game too.
Oh yeah. As soon as my husband gets home, I'm non-existent with the other cats.
So see, your husband is the star of the show. They're like,
oh yeah, I think it's the beard.
It's all about the beard, man. It's all about the beard. So how about everything else? Otherwise, like okay. So I have done, like, because I was as a freelancer, I believe there are three kinds of creatives.
Mhm.
The first strictly does it out of passion. The second wants to make some money, but it's not their priority. And the third is this is all they want to do. At this point, where do you think you fit?
I'd like to make some money, but it's not like my main priority in my life. I'm happy where I'm at now. Like I have a lot of free time. Like I shouldn't say that because I know we're getting into the busy season of retail, but I'm able to. I actually joined a theater group, and we're getting ready for our Fringe Festival. So I'm gonna be in my first ever Fringe play. So
Nice. Just you've been learning French, or are you good at it?
no, it's the Fringe is for theater.
Okay.
So no, I haven't been learning French. I haven't learned any other language, and I speak I speak English, but I speak poorly at it.
Poorly at it. Yeah. Well, English is probably the hardest language to learn. One of the hardest ones because it really makes no sense. Like there's no.
English isn't a language. It's like stolen words from other languages.
Pretty much. But it's its own in the middle, but it's like there's no rules, right? No. For example, there's words like there, which is like you make no sense at all. Why do you exist the way it does? I mean, heck, even the word fuck. Like, there's meanings, so many meanings to that word. It's all and somebody from another country with like structure and rules and an understanding of how they're like, and I don't care, Arabic, Chinese, Spanish, right? They all have rules. They all do, right? It helps you understand the language, right? English has fuck all that. There are no rules. So I'm sure any foreigner listening to this show will be like, yeah, that's right. You guys got no fucking rules. Makes no sense, right? Half the time, I'm still afraid I'm saying the damn wrong thing. And a little secret to anyone coming into the country, sometimes we're worried about that too, because we don't always know what we're talking about, but
Yeah.
that it is what it is.
Well,
So
English has all these weird like putting words to putting letters together that makes certain sounds like F or C or and it
yeah,
when you look at it as a whole, it doesn't make sense.
at all, even a little bit, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? So you look
Especially
at
when
it,
it comes to
you like,
spelling. It's
yeah,
like how can one word be spelled this way and have a whole nother meaning when it's spelled a different way?
exactly. Exactly. Like we don't make sense, folks. Like we don't. And to say otherwise would be a lie. Like we just don't make
And
sense.
this is why I trip on my own words.
Yes. Oh, okay. So, but anyway, so creativity is just for you is a how do we put this? It's
It's there. Like I'll do it just to keep myself motivated and keep going with stuff. But I I'm now enjoying my time, my free time with my husband, and being able to drive around and going to different events, and not having to worry about, did I book off this day so that I can go to these events? I can work around it.
see, I long see I killed my conscience with my jobs a long time ago. Like what I realized is like now, don't get me wrong. If you love your job, and I think this is the thing I should say, but preface this. If you love what you do, ignore the next little bit I'm about to say. This is for people that are looking to do more with their lives than just going to a day job. And again, I say this with no disrespect because the honest truth is, right, there are some wonderful day jobs out there. There really are. But what I realized this a long time ago, is that when I work for somebody, I am making them money. I'm saving
Yeah.
them time. So I don't have quite the same guilty conscience. Because the thing is, I look at it like this: no matter what the job is, you're probably not being paid what you deserve, right? And I'm not gonna, again, nothing disparaging about it. It's a universal problem on a lot of levels, right? There's what you're paid, and there's like minimum wage is $16 an hour. The truth of the matter is, like, any job that's at 16 probably should be at 30,
Yeah.
and any job that's at 20 should be at 40. Any job that's at 30 should be at 60. But the thing is, we don't live in that kind of world anymore. We live in a
Yeah.
world where a lot of people's times are sort of changed. So once you realize that, it makes it really easy to kill your conscience,
Yeah.
right?
And another thing, like I spent my 20s and my 30s slaving away at all these jobs, trying to make everybody else happy, and picking up shifts just to fill out my hours.
Yep.
My 40 hours a week that they promised me when I got hired. you know, and then
Yep.
yeah, after becoming unemployed at 40, I really had to take a step back and realize, I'm not happy doing these jobs. I'm not happy, looking at the chats and seeing if someone's going to give up their shift for the day, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
or being called in last minute and then being like, yes, I'll do this, and being the most reliable person did me no good when I'm not being paid enough for it, and when I'm not being acknowledged for the work that I do.
Well, that's what it's about, really, right? It's that, like, working a day job for the most part is not, and I mean, is if jobs like what you had are average and they're thankless. Like,
Mhm.
you should be happy you have a job. It's like, no, no.
Yeah,
There are a million jobs like this, and that's the problem. There are a million jobs like this. So, um, you have to realize it for what it is. It's you got to figure out at some point in your life, what do you want? Like, what do you really want?
exactly.
And the earlier you figure that out, the better, because you can save time, right? So,
Again, I'm 40. I haven't figured out what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm glad I have a job right now, but you know,
sure,
it's what do I have to offer people? I worked retail all my life.
that more than you think. No, I'm going to be very blunt with you. More than you think. You don't. If you so one of the things I do I have 4 resumes right now, 4 different resumes of just the different things I've done. I make them 4 instead of 1 because if it's 1, it's just a giant book at this point of all these different things I've done. Retail is communication, customer service, relationship building, negotiation, diplomacy. Patience in some ways is a big part of the job, but basically, you have plenty to offer. No, I like no joke. You have plenty to offer, but it's about perspective,
Yeah.
right? You again, the hardest thing I think that has to be worked on. I'm doing a freelance mindset presentation at When Words Collide in August. It's my special presentation. I'm doing a few other panel stuff with Kickstarter and Patreon because I've learned a lot about building an audience. And I can do
Okay.
some stuff there. So I know those things, and I'm moderating a TikTok panel because, well, I think I've done some stuff with TikTok. Some of these people they're way better at it than I am, so I can learn from this, and I can just direct it. So I'll be moderating that panel. But biggest thing I'm doing there is the freelance mindset, and the reason why that's important is you have to, in this life, doesn't matter what it is you choose to do, whether you are doing pets, um, whether you are a CEO, right? A job, even though that, yes, there's different tools, it's essentially about the same thing. Are you going to show up and do the work? Do you believe you can do the work?
Mhm.
If the answer is yes, there's not much in this life you can't do, right?
Yeah.
There's truthfully very few things that require that 4-year university education. There's a few, but it's not the
Yeah.
list people think it is. It's a handful of things, and the rest of it, honestly, with the information we have out there today, we can learn. Now, we have to prove ourselves, which in Canada is a very difficult thing to do because Canadians, the people that have the least faith in Canadians are Canadians themselves. That
It
is,
is incredibly frustrating when you are applying for jobs and it's like I know I suit this job perfectly to do what is asked on the requirements. I send them the resume. I send in, I hate doing cover letters. That is like,
cover
I
letters.
feel like that is my kryptonite. Is
Cover
how do
letters.
I talk about myself without making it sound like I'm, you know, self-absorbed?
No, but you have to. Okay, but I'll let you finish your point, and then I'm going to go back to the
Um,
next point.
but and then I get, I apply for like, yeah, I apply like to 20 jobs. I either have the resume completely ignored, or I'll get like 5 or 10 emails stating, "Oh, you didn't suit this position, but continue looking." You know, it's like,
So,
thanks.
so job search, writing for publication. There are a lot of the same skills. You're going to go out there. You're going to put your best foot forward, and you're going to get a lot of no's. Just the way it's nature of the beast, right? It's just the nature of the beast. It's possible. I'm trying to get myself one more gig this month. I did good this month, but I want to keep my momentum going, like I said, because there's a balance you have to do there.
Yeah.
I got some contract work with my other clients next week that I have to work on. I'm busy all the way till next Saturday, with some client work next week. But I also got to get like I said, I'm gonna be a busy guy for the next week or so. So all of which to say, though, I'm constantly looking. I'm expecting no's. It's a constant thing, and I've learned how to sell myself. So we're talking about cover letters and cover letters, and we'll equate it to pitching a book,
Yeah.
right? Or pitching your podcast even. Why are you you should be the most excited person about who you are and what you can do. No, I'm serious, because you've been there. Look, you went and did. Now, personal note, I don't know if I could do Starbucks for 20 years, right? Personal note, but you did it. You were with a company for a very, very, very long time.
13 years.
Yes, that's a long time with any company, right? In today's age, that's twice the average of most people's careers. Now, I mean, you're loyal, you show up, you have proven beyond a shadow of doubt the most important skill in any job is the ability to show up and do it.
Yeah.
That's it. You proved that nonstop for 13 years. Kudos to you. Like, honestly, that's a kudos. But the reality of the situation is okay, that is worth something. And in fact, that might be the most valuable thing anybody can bring to the table. So why wouldn't you talk about it in the biggest and best possible light you can? You did it, right? I mean, this honestly, you did it, right? Now, is it grand scheme of the universe? Is it the most important job out there? No, but honestly, most jobs aren't that. It's not about what. Hell, let's go one step further. It isn't really about the skills you have. It's about the confidence you exude, right? And if you exude a certain confidence, you will find that people will be drawn to you, because that's important, right? That's the real important thing. And so when you're talking about yourself on a cover letter, like, look, I'm not saying you don't even have to lie, right? All right, you don't lie. You don't have to lie. You don't have to go above. Like, listen, my name is Willow Skylor. I am a badass podcaster. I talk to people all the time about stuff. I'm a great listener. I love conversation. I love people, and I enjoy human relationships. This is why I do a podcast. This is why I worked in retail for so long. And suddenly, you have personality. I like people. So now, sales guys going, yes, because that's what sales is ultimately. It's about human relationships. So that's an angle you could go with. That would be very true, right? Now, let's say you wanted to change that. Let's say you want to go with something completely brand new. Okay. My name is Willow Skylor. I loved human relationships, but I want to challenge myself with something else. But these are my skills I picked up doing here, right? I dealt with people. I've dealt with management. I dealt with people above me. I've trained people. I helped do, again, these things are valuable skills.
Yeah.
Hence, you're valuable. Hence, and when you do a cover letter, right, you're trying to sell you. And the thing is, you can say, well, that sounds incredibly pretentious. It's like, no, it's not. You should be the most excited person in the room. I'm terrified. It's like, well, I'm not a big deal. Oh, and you have like an Eeyore sounding voice. I'm not a big deal. I'm like, okay, that's a thing. Okay. So I worry about that, because if you're not excited about what you're going to do, how can you convince somebody else to be excited with you? Right? And it doesn't matter if it's a job, or if it's a podcast, or if it's a book, or if it's a product. The nature of sales is being enthusiastic and believing in what you do. And you should believe in what you do, because you're Willow Skylor, and right? And this sounds like a pep talk a little bit, but at the same time, you have this is the thing. I'm asking this legitimately, honestly, and truthfully. Are you happy? Because the reason I'm asking that is you have this, and I've listened to you not twice, and the second time, and you have a habit that a lot of Canadians have. You sell yourself short. So my question is, that leads me to the credence that you have accepted certain things in life, right?
Mhm.
That you've not necessarily had to accept. So my question then is, are you happy with where you gone? Furthermore, and what do you want? Now that last question is a big and broad question. It's a big and broad question. But the first part is about the second part. I think this is what I think. This is my big like epiphany just listening to you here. I think one of the biggest reasons people don't find purpose is that people don't find confidence to go out there and go on those limbs and figure things out. I don't know what is the right thing, so I am going to do the safe thing. Now I'm not saying that's you. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But right, I'm not. That but
Only a little.
right, I'm gonna do well maybe. But the thing is the safe thing is not necessarily the thing that's going to make you happy. And I'm not disparaging anything you're doing with your life. If you're genuinely happy with it, mazel tov. Like honestly, it doesn't matter what I think it looks like. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks it looks like. Who fucking cares? They're not living in your shoes. They're not walking your walk. You are. Are you genuinely excited about the life you're living or the life you're going into? If the answer is no, right, then you need to have an honest conversation with your husband, God, a counselor, a priest, whatever it is, and say, okay, how do I find the happy thing? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. And yes, I am in therapy because I tend to self-deprecate a little too much, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the confidence in myself to, you know, get past, you know, past traumas, and yeah, it's just every so often I have to take a moment, and my therapist has taught me sort of how to do this is take a look back at the at past me and say, look, it's okay.
Yeah, no, you got to forgive yourself a little bit. You have to, right? Because we all make mistakes. We
Yeah.
all do, and you got to forgive yourself for that. But okay, this is so for you, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask. So, do you think you found what you're passionate about in life?
You know what? With the working at the pet store, actually, it has
Sure,
opened up my eyes a lot more. Of I'm happy to be around animals. I'm
sure.
happy to see them. I'm happy to try to get them adopted, and it I'm happier being at the pet store than I was when I was working at Starbucks.
Okay, I gathered that, but that doesn't quite answer my question. Okay, what I mean is, you're happier. Word choice there implies so you're still not quite fulfilled. If that makes sense. That's what the word choice says. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's true. Okay. And by the way, I'm not disparaging. I'm not. Again, no disparagement. What I'm simply saying is, the way you find your passion, the true way you find it. Okay, so you have lots of. First off, you go out and do shit, right? You do different things. You get out of your comfort zone a little bit, right? For example, in Calgary right now, there is a place where you do indoor skydiving,
Oh.
right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna hit that place before I go, just because I kind of want to see what that feels like, right?
Yeah.
Right now, there's no other reason other than the fact that I don't want to do it, and but I want to do it. It's one of those. It's an interest. It's not a passion, but it's an interest,
Yeah.
right? So I have all these interests. Now, somewhere along the way in doing these interests, it's almost like falling in love, right? In the sense that you just know that this feels beyond a shadow of a doubt great, right? So, somewhere along the way, and exploring your interests, you find your passion. Now, you might look at reasons not to do that passion, whatever that is, but eventually, Willow, you'll have this conversation with yourself. Your therapist will at that point grab like one of those roll up things and just go whap, fucking thing, right? Is it right? And you'll still be scared, and it'll be different. And it might not be what you imagined it would be, but at the same time, you what I've learned in this life, and then we'll go back to like cover letters and stuff like that. Is what I've learned in this life is that you have to go out on a limb, and you have to go into the unknown sometimes. I may do it too much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you take risk in this life to learn. That's how you learn who you are. That's how you learn what you love. That's how you learn what you want, right? What you don't want. Because if you stay, again, not disparaging day jobs, exactly. The thing is, there's a degree of comfort in having one. Well, if that comfort is stopping you from growing, from what you want to become, whatever that looks like, then at some point you got to walk away. Now, again, you got responsibilities, right? You got responsibilities, but at the same time, you know what? Life's too short, right? Life's just way too fucking short. All of which, to go back to you, Miss Skylor, and say this: I'm glad you're at the pet store. I'm glad. No, I am, because you did not seem that happy. You had outgrown Starbucks.
I had, and I was looking for my way out, and as upsetting as it was to be fired in the way that I was, and having to, reconnect with myself, and recalculate and everything. It made me realize that, if I wasn't pushed in that direction, I probably wouldn't have found, my niche of being around animals. And
so I have like 12 rules of success now. The 8th rule is stay uncomfortable. So again, if this is a mere suggestion from a dude with a big mouth on the podcast, but the initial feelings you had when you got fired, remember them, because they pushed you to find this, right? I'm not saying starve
it's
yourself.
the same thing as, grieving the death of a friend. You miss them when they're not there. But like, I will say that Starbucks was a toxic environment, and it has become that way because the people who made the company made it that way.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna go so far this way because I do have a pocketbook to protect. At least the location you were at was toxic for you.
Yeah.
Can't dispute that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, with 13 years in the company, you have an insight I do not. However, I don't have the legal pocketbook. If someone listens to this and goes and says this is so, I'm not disputing with you, but what I will say is also, and I've seen this too with other Starbucks as well. The management and the mileage will vary based on the store you're at. But the store you were at, you were done.
Yeah.
And right. So, that all said, but I even beyond the grieving part of it, right? Just the fact that you were in a situation where you have to move or else.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That is a good.
At every job, I'm gonna there were things at every job that I've had that I liked, and there were things at every job that I absolutely hated.
Sure.
There's things that I missed from working at Starbucks that really actually kind of made my life a little easier, but at the same time, the mental anguish that I felt at the end of my day is far less when working at the pet store than I felt working at Starbucks.
No, it's a different environment all the way around, right? So it feels different. It's a refreshing change,
Yeah.
right? It's a different challenge, right? It's a different challenge,
I'm
right?
finding that I'm finding now that I'm more creative, and I'm able to actually I started painting, so
That's awesome. What do
things
you
like
paint?
that, and I'm starting to get in the habit of, you know, cleaning up my house a little bit more. I'm finding that I have more energy. I planted plants for the first time
Oh,
ever.
so are you good with plants?
Oh
Or
no, I have three old flower planters in front of my house, and I try to stir up the soil and water, add water to it, and just to see if anything will grow in it. Out of the three, one one planter has stuff growing in it, so I'm like, okay, well, let's see what that will turn into.
okay, okay. So one little trick you can do with the soil, and this is going to sound really, really, really interesting, is you can layer your soil with sour cream.
Oh,
So plants are bacteria based, right? So you grow
yeah.
so by giving the sour cream, like there are other ways of doing it. This is just a really cheap way of doing it. But putting like a little sour cream, like put things with sour cream, you have an and put the food source in there. It actually makes it more absorbable for the plants. It's the
Oh,
bacteria.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Good
it's
to know.
bacteria. Yeah, it's bacteria. Yeah. So, um, my sister and my dad are both mega like gardeners. I
Mhm.
like it. I enjoy it. Um, when but I'm going to be on the road, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to grow something. But that's something that's there is a simple pleasure in watching something grow, and
Yeah.
I enjoy it for that reason. So but that's me. That is me. So
Well, unfortunately, when it came to like doing anything like garden wise, I've like um, living in foster care did this. I lived with my grandma, and my grandparents had a huge garden, so it was almost like a punishment. I have to get that out of my head where it's not a punishment anymore to go out and um, pick out the leaves, or the garbage out of your garden to make sure that your plants grow.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can leave some things like discarded like banana peels, fruit stuff, things like that
Yeah,
nature. But yeah, you gotta take care of stuff, and it's a big part of the job, right? It really really is.
yeah.
So, but it sounds like you're growing and changing.
I,
So
I'm finding little bits of passions here. Like I still have my cosplay stuff that I want to get back into. Um, there's an opportunity to um, uh, be the chair of a convention in the future. Yeah, I definitely have things in the works. Just have to get off my butt and actually do it.
that's what it comes down to, right? But I saw it's not about motivation, sometimes it's about momentum. That's like you got to create the momentum for yourself. Once you do that, it's easier,
Yeah,
right? It's easier. I'm not saying it's always, but yeah, something in motion. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. That's
yeah.
just that's just how it works. So if you're at rest, you got to push yourself.
But I'm looking to do more stuff that makes me happy rather than everybody else,
Uh,
and that's really hard when it comes to being a people pleaser.
well, I mean, it's about who you want to please,
Yeah.
right? So as a freelancer, okay, I don't charge cheap. But the reason I don't charge cheap is because I figured out something long ago. The quality of the pay is almost an equation to the quality of investment my clients have.
Hmm.
So realizing that, um, once I realized that, it made it really easy for me to uh, I now look at what kind of people do I want to. It's not anybody anymore. It's
Yeah.
a certain group of people. Who do I want in my life? Do I want people that are flakes? Do I want people who will appreciate me? Do I want people who like? I want people who will appreciate what I do for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
I
it.
hear you. That,
Right.
that is exactly what I'm doing. Like, like since this whole, you know, your body changes every 7 years.
Oh yeah.
So I took this as, you know, this is you know, this is a new decade for me, being 40. Um, and what do I need to do for myself to make me happier so that I'm not always pleasing everybody else?
The glories of not giving a shit. It's like here's the thing. I'm at the point now where I don't look at it the same way anymore. I look at it from the point of view of um, if people want me there, they find ways to get me incorporate. If they don't, they won't.
Yeah.
It's that simple, right? I'm not going to go out of my way for them. I'm not. I'll go out of my way if I see that you're legitimately trying stuff. But besides that, not.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything above and beyond that,
And
right?
it's the same with friends. Like if people aren't gonna attribute to or like contribute to your passion or help you along the way, then why keep them in your life? Same
Yeah,
thing with family.
yeah. No, you learn these things as you go. Like you learn these things as you go. Is that you're off on a path, they're off on a path, and you diverge sometimes. Sometimes you just diverge, and you have to kind of accept the fact that not everybody's going to go to the same place you are, and that's fine. Like honestly, that's okay. You can still keep in touch, but again, it's about what you and them value.
Yeah.
They may not value you the same way, and if they don't, they're going to let you know in no uncertain terms. The only advice I give, biggest thing coming back to Calgary for me was I learned this lesson, but the hard way, and I learned stuff. It was good. I needed it. I don't regret doing it. But what I realized for me, and one of the reasons, the big reason I'm going on the road is I am looking for that place where that fits me, whatever that looks like, whatever that feels like.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that here. Here is I'm working here, which it's not a bad thing, but I can work anywhere.
Yeah.
If I can work anywhere, why would I work here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If the place that you're living in doesn't give you any happiness, or yeah, it's like what is it, Mary Kondo, with the limiting the junk in your life. If you hold it and it brings you no joy, then why keep it?
Exactly. That's what I'm doing right now. Right. That's literally what I'm doing right now with my life is I'm sorting out the junk. And once I sorted out everything else but like one or two things. And once once the comics are gone, that's pretty much it. Like I'm out, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a little part of me, it's a little antsy about that because again, I don't know what's next. Like to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know I have an idea of where I'm starting, but I don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
And I'd be less than, I mean, I'll be honest about it. It's a little scary.
Moving brings me so much anxiety. It's because I moved around a lot in my life, but it gave me the feeling of, okay, it's a new place. It's a chance to reinvent yourself. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've moved around a lot too. Younger me could handle it a lot better than I could now. It's a little harder now.
Yeah.
It's a little hard. It takes a little bit more out of me to move. But I'm also like, but so when I was a kid, I would move on average once a year, on average. As an adult, it's not okay. During the pandemic, I moved more than I ever did because, well, I had made the decision prior to it that like I had a day job then, right? And I had to walk away from it. And because it wasn't doing anything for me. Yes, I was making okay money, but it wasn't a healthy environment for me. I was at the point where if I was fired, I wouldn't have cared. Like that like when you hit that point with a job, and it's not because the job was a bad job or a toxic place. I'd done it. There was nothing
Yeah.
left for me to do. So, and that's kind of where I was like, I'm just done. Like, I'm just done. If something happens to me, great. But and that's not a good place to be at a job. So I made that decision. And so I was going to be displaced. I was like, well, what happens if it doesn't work out? Well, I have to go back home, I guess. But that's okay. Life is risk. Life is change.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not rocket science. It's not. Life is risk. Life is change.
Yeah.
So I made that thing, and so I've been in Ontario. Went back to Alberta. Now I'm going off into the unknown. I don't know where this all goes.
And whereabouts are you planning on going?
So so I'm going to be on the road for the foreseeable future. So I started off going to Vancouver.
Okay.
Then I go to California.
Oh, okay.
Then I go to Arizona. Then I go to Colorado. Then my buddy's getting married in September. I might not get to Colorado. I might have to go back up before I go back down. Right. Then I have to go.
Are you living? Like, are you gonna live in a van or?
Pretty much.
Okay. Okay.
Pretty much for the next little bit. I can work anywhere. Like, that's the thing. Like, my situation allows me to work anywhere I want. So if I decide that I want to go to a beach in the winter, I can do that. And if I get bored, I can go to the mountains. And if I get bored, I can go, to the desert. If I'm bored, like, that's it. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
Right. So, and all the while, I'm just going to meet people, make contacts, do things. Right.
There's lots of bloggers that TikTokers and YouTubers that do that show their life and living in vans and travel everywhere.
Well, I'm also going to be doing the podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm just going to show you here real quick. I'm going to show this to everybody on the air too. Give me a second here. I'm typing this down. They gave me an award for this there a long time ago to do this stuff like this. Hold on a second here. So this is my Patreon. So I'm already actually doing shows of what they're going to look like in the future.
Okay.
Right. And I started doing them. I got my third show drops next week.
Oh, okay.
They're basically they're the new format, just done in a way that's very what I feel it's going to be like when it's on the road. I film it, I produce it, I write it. So it's me it's the concept of the show that people are familiar, but it's done in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that final product looks like when it's all said and done. And then once the clock breaks 1,000, right, those episodes will be available publicly for everybody. You pay for them now, but you get them in advance.
Okay.
Right. When everybody else does, and then that'll be the formula going forward. That'll be what I do.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Am I on something or am I onto something?
I wish you luck with it. Just keep us updated on how you're doing.
Well, you can find me. You'll be able to find me. Yeah, and hopefully that'll be, that's going to be my thing. And then along the way, meet some people, make connections, expand business. That's how it's done.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then somewhere along the way, when I get tired of traveling, I'll end up somewhere in the middle of nowhere, probably, fall in love and do all the other things you're supposed to do in life and have a good time doing it. That's what I feel anyway.
Well, the van life community seems pretty positive. They seem to be able to. They seem they seem like they will help you, and if you need any help with stuff. And,
Oh, sure. Oh no, now it's all about the prep. Like I said, I'm saying goodbye to what there. I guess the final inspirational thing about this chat, and then we'll talk about your podcast stuff a little bit before we wrap up,
mhm.
is at any moment you have to give up who you are for who you want to become.
Yeah,
That's just life. Like the new does not come in unless you're willing to get rid of the old. That's just how life works.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that's what I'm doing. Like right now in my room downstairs, I have a whole bunch of comic boxes there. Some of them I've started going through them. I've sorted out the stuff I'm going to keep for sure.
Mhm.
So right, the stuff I'm going to keep. I might create one more box for that when it's all said and done. But yeah, that's it. It's done. It's over
Yeah,
with. Right. It is. How do we put this? Um, it is. This is where the journey is always meant to go with me. So I'm going to let it. Um, I'll see what becomes of it when we get to the other side.
yeah, and who knows? You might find a place that suits you better, and
Yeah, absolutely. Find a community that actually I feel fits.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what it's about for me. You, it sounds like it's about. It seems like you're on your way. I mean, you want to do stuff with animals. It sounds like you enjoy that stuff.
I just I'm I'm taking more risks with stuff now rather than sticking with what is safe. And you mentioned that, and I'm very much the let's do this because it's safe, you know.
Yep.
Um, and I've been looking into taking courses and just you know I definitely want to do something new and let's go for it kind of. I want to take that it like
Sure.
I know my husband's a little iffy on that when it comes to me, and I have a tendency to do this where I will jump into something with both feet rather than think of the consequences of everything around me.
Sometimes, sometimes that's the way to do it, though. Like
Yeah.
it's you don't know till you do it, right? I mean, I don't know what your husband does, but if there's a degree of financial security, right, right,
He likes to remind me that we're not poor. But I still have that mentality of, because I grew up, I came from a poor situation where I had no money, scrounging for food, and
I remember that too, but you have to let that go.
yeah,
Because no, I'm serious. I think with you, like if it's to that degree, it's a detriment. It's good to have a little like look. I've starved. I was like legitimately, I've starved. It's good that I have that memory because it's that silent vow that it will never happen again,
yeah,
ever. Right? I will never let myself go back to a place where I am wondering where my next meal is coming from.
yeah,
That's a good use of that feeling. But if you're gonna let like okay, but you can't like I don't want to say the think and grow rich or the rich dad poor dad stuff is necessarily the right, but there is some merit to it. It's not about money, it's about your time.
yeah,
Ironically, okay, a freelance tip. The moment I stopped worrying about money was the moment I started making more of it. Because what happened is I realized is I'm not after money. Why am I freelancing? I want freedom.
yeah,
That doesn't necessarily mean I'm the richest guy or the poorest guy. I want the freedom to come and go and do what I want.
yeah,
That's what I want. And what I want, and whether I want to go skydiving, whether I want to go to a gym, whether I want to go hit on a pretty woman half my age, whether I want to, doesn't matter. What matters is, right? What matters is I have the freedom and the opportunity and the time to do those things.
hmm
And I believe my creativity and my ingenuity is the best way for me to make that happen. It's very clear, it's very concise, it's very me.
Yeah.
So I say all that to you because the moment you stop worrying about money and start worrying about time, you'll have an abundance of the former, more of an abundance of the former than you had before. It's good to have those feelings on the inside, a little bit of what it could be like. Never forget where you came from,
Yeah.
but you have to let the place, but you can't carry that place with you with everything you do. Because if you
Yeah.
carry that place with you, you've never truly left it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like I hit a point there. If you're in a financial situation where you guys have money, right, and
Yeah.
your husband's like, go do it, babe. Like projects, like just go do it. Yeah, maybe he's like, maybe you should have a parachute. Maybe when you jump, but at the same time, don't be afraid to leap.
Yeah.
Especially if you already got, like, if you got that position, you know, go do it. Like, just see what happens. It might not work out, but I promise you, it leads somewhere.
Yeah.
And she's like, thank you for the Brad beating. Here's your collection money, sir. Yeah. So, talk about your podcast. Let's wrap this up. Let's get to the point where we're starting to wrap this up.
All right. So, being I'm the I'm the co-host of Back of the Cereal Box. We kind of created our own network for that. So we talk about all the fun cartoons and TV shows that we used to watch as a kid, and kind of we now have gone into rewatching some of the cartoons that we used to watch as a kid. And we talk about it. Every week is a different subject. This week we're talking about Star Wars, Ewoks, and droids. And so, yeah, totally 80s cartoons.
Hey, man, they were the greatest commercials ever made.
Yeah.
All the shit that was there for us to go, Mommy, Daddy, I want to buy this. They're like,
and me being a giant nerd, we like to show off what we bought during the week, and
you got the mystery machine.
So it's all about nostalgia and reliving your childhood with a bowl of cereal.
So what's the bowl of cereal? What was your bowl of cereal?
Right now, I'm still working on the Reese's Puff Bunnies. So Canada has we get these weird cereals every so often, but the boxes are very boring. It's not like in the US where they have like the mazes and you take a picture of the QR code and it sends you something.
I'm not encouraging anything here. I'm saying this just as a hypothetical here more than anything else. Because I know where you live. You're not that far from the border, right? You're not that far from the border. And I'm like, you know what you could do? And you could just say it's research.
I could go to Fargo and go shopping once in a while. Yes, I agree with you.
I'm not advocating you should or you shouldn't, but it sounds to me like, are you enjoying the show?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So then you should listen. That's a good author bio too. That's a good podcast bio. Willow Skylor secretly makes pilgrimages to the United States because the cereal boxes have cool stuff on it, whereas the Canadian boxes are boring, right?
For those of you who watched Canadian Bacon, it's totally true. Like, our stuff has to have both the English and French on it.
Which is fine. But, I mean, you would think they would put, like, word searches or cheeses or, like, cool-ass toys. Like that's the thing, right? Right? You get all this cool-ass shit, and it's like, oh, okay. But Not that I judge anything or anyone for anything, but yes, I'm just saying, like, once a month you could, like, you could, like, just sneak down there and go, hey, and you can see all the cool shit you had as a kid right there available too.
I need to get myself a passport.
That's not too hard to do. I got one. I'm getting my other one actually soon. I have a Canadian and an American. So when I cross the border, I'm going to be an American. Thank you. And
Yeah.
actually, and I'm getting ready to do that real soon too. Like by the end of June, I want to be ready to go get my license somewhere. So I'm going to be working on that. Again, I'm going to have a busy month prepping for what's next. So it's going to be actually talking to you has been good because it made me realize, like, what's on the list of stuff to do. It's going to be a wild time. It's going to be a wild time. And it's going to fly. It is going to fly fast. Right. So it's going to be fun. But yeah, so that's one. What's your other show?
And I host Cryptid Crunch every first and third Sunday of every month. We talk about myths, monsters, and creatures. Every week we have a different theme. Sometimes I have a guest, and we talk about cryptids. And yeah, we talked about Greek mythology a couple weeks ago, which was really fun.
Nice. I'm doing Greek mythology right now in one of my stories.
Okay.
I mashed up Alice in Wonderland with Greek myths.
Oh yeah.
I made Alice Pandora. It actually works incredibly well. So, and then it's been fun taking the Wonderland mythos and the Greek mythos and matching them up in fun ways.
Mm-hmm. We've one episode we talked about fairy tales and lullabies and the truth behind them. So,
some of them are quite terrifying.
They are, and yeah, it's when you do the deep dive on some of these creatures too, like some of these myths, like Greek mythology is all about the gods being petty to each other.
For the most part, yes. For the most part, it's also about some other things as well. But I mean, the gods are not nice people.
No, they're not.
Zeus is the biggest whore on the planet. He's a whore. He'll literally fuck anything. Like, literally.
Yeah.
Hera. I grew to feel a little sorry for her. Right. Artemis is a bitch. Aphrodite is. I mean, at least Aphrodite knows how to throw a party. Bit of a bastard. Ares is the douchebag jock we've all come to know and despise. Hermes is okay. He doesn't have the same issues. Hades has possession issues. Let's see here. I'm thinking about all of them, all the big ones. The big gods are all douches. The little ones, the not so well known ones, they're interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like a lot of them get so petty that they try to be in competition with each other, and then they punish each other if they lose.
Well, that was culture at the time. The strongest wins. Is always right. Right. And I mean, have you read this? Like, okay, so Jason of the Argonauts was my villain in my first Alice, like full Alice book. And I was like, he's not because I read him. He's not a hero at all. His most heroic moment was actually the beginning of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He stumbled on this one island. He married, had some kids for a while, and then he had to go. But that part of Jason's story is really good. When you get all the way to the rest of it, right? It like Medea, like his relationship with Medea is fucked up beyond belief, right? Right, and deception, treachery. I mean, he is a political story, and he's the hero because he wins, not because he's a good person, but because he wins. That's it. So, I mean, good villain material, but not not no, I would call it a good hero, but again, different values, different era, different age, different time.
Yeah.
So,
And the
but
funny thing is, like, I forgot to mention this on my show was because Winnipeg has all these like weird uh, architecture. Um, our legislature building has like all of these depictions of Greek mythology, and our golden boy is Hermes.
nice.
Um, and it was funny because me and my husband actually were talking about this. Why it like he's like, well, kids don't have to see if they're learning about Greek mythology, they don't have to look at the teacher shouldn't have to show these statues that are naked. And I'm just like, but
Sure.
that's the whole point of going through the Greek mythology is learning about art.
Art, philosophy, culture. I mean, listen, a lot of our concepts, even our concepts today, some of them come from that. Um, some of that comes from that era. It really
Yeah,
does, right? So you have to how to put this? You have to look at where they're going from the perspective of, you know, from the perspective that our ideas today, okay, United States is more so than here, but even so, even some of our ideas come from Greece.
yeah.
What we know of Greece, like those ideas are legit, you know.
Yeah. But I
So
will I will always think of the human body as art first before it being a sexual object. But that's just
you know,
I guess that's
it,
just how
it,
I was brought up. But
I can see it. I can see it as both, and I'm okay with
yeah,
that too. It just right. Look, I'm human. I like what I see. I'm going to chase it because it's just part of my nature. But at the same time, it's okay. The way I look at it is, it's okay how you can view the body however you view the body. That's fine,
yeah,
as long as you don't like despise it or damage it in any way, shape, or form. The important thing is it's not just about the body.
yeah,
I can like what I see um, and not how do I put this? I can like what I see and not let that rule me.
yeah.
All right, in any way, shape, or form. And as long as that's the case, it's good.
But we shouldn't be ashamed of it. We shouldn't be ashamed of
No,
it. If we see a naked statue, we shouldn't feel ashamed.
nope, nope. We shouldn't. I have friends. I have friends who are nudist. It's like no shame at
Yeah,
all, and it's like okay, good, good,
yeah,
right? And that's the way it should be. But like I said, we don't have another hour to talk about how television has done wondrous things, especially in the United States about especially
yeah.
boobs, like right. But
Which is funny because
it,
like I grew up with I love situational comedies, and that's the great thing about hosting my
oh
podcast is
sure,
that I have an opportunity to talk to other people who have grown up in the same era as me, and we can talk about Golden Girls for an hour, or Friends.
yeah, Friends is apparently controversial today. I don't know why it's not. It wasn't controversial then. It was very safe.
Yeah,
Like back then, it was like for its time, it was very safe.
yeah. But
Right.
yeah, I listen to other podcasts, and Mayim Bialik actually was on a recent episode was talking about the nostalgia and it of growing up in the 90s and how we look back at it as a time that we wish we can have back. Um, I don't know if I would actually go back to that time, but
I
I like the things that came out of it.
I like some. I think there's good and bad in every era, like all of them,
Yeah,
right. So because like we're old enough where the '90s was our parents, the '60s,
yeah,
like right, and that all right. Time has just gone forward. So I look at the '90s like I mean there's some great things like I like from an art perspective like music some of the best music ever is from
oh
that
yeah,
time. Absolutely. Some of the I mean, it was. I mean, the internet had come out. It came from that deck. Well, the internet was invented earlier than that, but that's when it became public and
it
mainstream.
was
You started,
95. Well, actually, okay,
and
in my foster home, we got it around, I think it was around 96, 97.
yeah. Whereas I was playing with it at high school in
Mhm.
'96, so it was. Um, how to put this? Those were some of the great things that came from that time. The worst things that came from that time. You know, you know, there were other things that came out of it that aren't so great.
Yeah.
The 2000s that are how to put this. I think the 2000s are going to be looked at less fondly than the '90s were, just based on everything that came, all the bad that came out of it, especially in the back half of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, every era, it doesn't really matter what era we're living in. If you want to look for the good in it, you will.
Yeah.
You'll find it. You know,
I mean,
that's just
we our parents will look at the 70s and the 80s as their childhood, and a lot of them and my mom grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and there's things
yeah.
about the 80s that I remember, like I was born in 82. There's things about the 80s that I remember vividly.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in '81. I grew up with the rock and wrestling connection era, baby. I remember that. I remember all those cartoons. I remember. Well, I mean, every era has its charms. Every era has its
Yeah.
downsides, right? Every era. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, there are things about this era I look at, I go, ugh,
Hmm.
I don't like it. Not because I don't think this era is the guy it's good doesn't have its good points, but it's because I've been alive long enough. I think what happens to us is we're alive long enough. We've seen where some of those circles
Yeah.
go, so we're a little less.
I just wonder. I just trying to figure out where did we go from the 90s where we were. It seemed like we were more open to discuss stuff in the 90s when it came to sitcoms and stuff like that, to suddenly being completely prudish, where we're trying to hold back certain subjects.
Because that the answer to that question is 2002 2003. No, I can tell you exactly. I can tell you exactly what happened in our media is our media started becoming more extreme. So at first, it was the extreme right. Like during that era, that was the extreme right era. So and that was that way for that throughout the 2000s. That was kind of what happened. 2000, but now in the last now during now the pandemic showed the extreme left. Now, but instead of one side being extreme, now both sides are extreme.
Yeah.
And what's happened is because we have these extremes, there's no. You and I grew up in an era of consensus. There was a like whether we agreed with everything about it or not, there was a compromise to live,
Yeah.
right? Well, now that's gone. So what's happened now is, and part of that, the other big part of that reason is like openly government are the institutions we have trusted have openly lied to us,
Oh yeah.
and they've done it so often whether we realize it or not, right? Barring in times of extreme fear where we will still turn to them because we like that kind of abuse for some strange reason. um, we don't trust them, and because we don't trust them, we don't have a standard of integrity or transparency. And because we don't have those things, And because we have these two extremes, we are going towards tribalism, right? I don't even like politically speaking, right? I'm moderate right,
Yeah.
politically speaking, right? But now, moderate right, not extreme right,
Mhm.
not none right. I tend to believe in freedom of speech. And this thing like freedom of speech, freedom of the rights to protect yourself, right? I value those. It doesn't mean I don't see value on the other side of the spectrum,
Yeah.
right? Right, I do. That's why I'm a moderate. There are some things on the left I think are great, but that's a moderate's perspective. We live in a world now today where again this didn't happen overnight, but they again in the nature of selling ideas to people, we have become more extreme in how we sell ideas. And since we've gone to that fulcrum,
Yeah.
and we have no consensus or measurement of somewhere of truth or transparency, there is nothing to identify, right? There's nothing to identify a correct answer. So we go down to the tribal answer.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that I know that will talk about like Trump and some hero or villain. Whether he
Yeah.
is or isn't is irrelevant to what I'm saying. Point is, if I say that word, I get a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk to anyone's political ideas, right? And I could say things about my own ideas. Someone might think I'm a greedy capitalist pig. Whether I am or not, it's not really. That's not the
Yeah.
point, right? I don't fit. There's no set in stone idea anymore. And because there's no set in stone idea, the simplest way to actually get things to go is to sit down, chat, and work things out and come up with a compromise.
Yeah.
That's that. But again, our generation theoretically knows how to do that. Our problem with our generation is we have self-worth issues.
We're the
That
generation to acknowledge the abuse that we've gone through, especially when it came to the government. And I will say that I like the idea of our generation's children taking a stand for their rights. Like you guys,
sure.
they're braver than us. To
I wouldn't go that far.
in a way,
I wouldn't go that far.
Where we stood up for our rights when it came to the gay community, and we got something put through where it is now wrong for them to be treated in a bad way. Now the next generation is taking that a little bit further and fighting for more rights for certain for
I see. I think don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah, no.
I don't think those rights are important. It's just see if I were to look today at the real problems going on in Canada. I'm in the city of Calgary right now. I don't know what's like where you're at, but I'm going to imagine. I can only imagine. There's probably a lot more people on the streets than there were a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So, to me, the biggest problem right now is the life we are trying to live right now is unsustainable. It's right. It's unsustainable, and it's going to collapse one way or the other. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, you're doom and gloom." It's like, no, it is. Everybody. The cost of a house is to such a point in most of the country now. Okay, I can pay a price of a house in Calgary the same as I could pay the price of a house in Windsor, Ontario. Now, Windsor, Ontario has nothing there.
Like
nothing.
Yeah, the housing market out here is insane. For a house, one of my neighbors put their house up for sale. $400,000 in my neighborhood for a house that has 3 bedrooms, maybe 2 bathrooms, maybe.
But the question is, what's the average wage of someone that lives there? Is it
Minimum
$30
wage.
an
Like
hour? So you haven't seen so what does that so again, this is my point. That's the real problem today, is you have a minimum wage system with a max. So for you to commit, like, let's just assume, for the sake of our argument, that someone buys a house with that kind of wage scale. You're not paying that off. So, right. So the thing is, so you're not paying it off, but you're putting everything you make into this thing. Now, what if tomorrow, all those houses that are worth $100,000 are now worth $100,000? All that wealth that has been put into that house is now worth nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think, folks, that this can't happen, I got drugs to sell you. And but to me, that's the real problem.
That is, and that's the issue. Like, the governments are trying to, and this is, I apologize. This is why I keep saying that we have to hold our governments accountable, because that hasn't happened. We haven't been doing that. We become so accustomed to them ruling over us. We'll just bend over backwards and let it happen.
Well, no, except at this point, I don't. I'm walking away, because I see, again, I don't have to live this way. Right? I don't. The reality of the situation, this is what this comes down to. Like, this is my opinion. This is the biggest problem right now in Canada. Like, more than any other thing, everything else, again, I'm not trying to belittle like native rights, gay rights, none of that stuff. I'm not trying to belittle it, but I'm looking at the fact that right now, okay, I'm in Calgary. The average cost for a room here is about $600. It's the average right now. A room, not an apartment, a room. That and legitimately, 5 years ago, $600 or $700 would have gotten me an apartment.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we're at, and what that tells me is this American dream bullshit that we bought into is no longer a viable way of life.
We got to stop paying attention to America and worry about our own shit.
Canada, see, Canadians have a tendency to, we like order. And this is the thing the Americans do better than us. They don't like something, they speak up. They're better at it than we are. Canadians like order, and as long as things are done in an orderly way, and this is our biggest like damning thing.
Yeah.
As long as it's done in an orderly fashion, we go along with it. If there's a little bit of chaos, we tend to blame people causing the chaos, whether or not they're right or wrong, whether or not they're doing a protest like that. That's what they do, right? I'm okay. Genuine question. What did you think about the trucker protest?
I absolutely hated it. Like, because okay, so
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite way. But I'm I'm curious to what you think.
I have a sister who is anti-vax, and and what came out of all that is total outlook that it wasn't realistic. She believed everything that her algorithm showed her was, these weird stories of, okay, granted, Elon Musk is an evil son of a bitch, and I knew that from the moment that he started popping up on everybody's TVs and internet screens. What he's doing now, trying to gone into that whole aspect of his career, is shameful. And the trucker convoy is a derivative of that, where they believe that all these weird QAnon conspiracies that aren't true.
Okay.
And somehow they feel like the vaccine that they were being forced to get, was going to control their minds. There was a chip in them. They're like, I'm.
That's well, no. Honestly, here's the thing. I can usually, I ask this for this reason. I watch the truckers protests strictly from the point of view of Twitter. The reason, and
I haven't used my Twitter in several years.
No. But here's the thing. Now this was the interesting thing. Twitter is still the best piece of journalism in the world, and the reason you're going to disagree with me. You're going to disagree with me, but I'm going to tell you why. Here's why. You can literally watch any event in the world on Twitter without any filter.
You can do that on TikTok as well.
No, you can't. Twitter's better. Twitter is actually better at it because Twitter is literally a minute by minute update. It is the only. TikTok cannot do it to the same degree. Reddit can. Reddit is also capable of doing it, but Twitter and Reddit are legitimately the best places of journalism. You'll find because you won't have any media coverage. You can literally watch the footage raw. So when I watched the trucker protests on Twitter, there was none of that stuff. They weren't opposing necessarily the vaccine existed. They were opposing the Vax Pass. I agreed with that for a lot of reasons. I don't like the idea of the Vax Pass because of the historical context of it. They were disruptive, but they also were not doing anything different than what happened in India the year prior. India, when farmers were protesting what was happening in India, they parked all their tractors in the city of New Delhi for over a year. And in comparison, that was far more violent than what happened in Canada.
Okay,
so
if we had a farmer strike in Manitoba, that would kill our economy here.
But what
I wouldn't be against it because of the fact that they aren't getting what they should from the government.
Oh, I agree with you. But here's where this is why I see it this differently. I see it right. They were protesting the Vax Pass. I tend to agree with that concept. I don't like that idea with the government having that much access to information more than the vaccine. I disagree with that concept. Fighting that and government overreach is a very natural thing. It was a protest because, again, if you look at everything up until the Emergencies Act, there was no real violence. There's mischief, but that's not exactly necessarily a violent crime. Someone listening to me would be like, well, but again, it disrupted things because that's what a protest does, right? Protests like that tend to do that.
These same people who were all up in arms about the mandates, yes, they were annoying. I hated them too. I hated the fact that I couldn't see my family. I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't go to conventions. Yes, it disrupted our lives.
But it went beyond that though when we got to the pass. When we were legitimately dividing people up. People that didn't get the vaccine were not being denied. They hadn't gotten to the point where they were denied work. Some jobs they were denied. People were fired for their work. People were forced out. You created a legitimate segregation inside the country. That is no matter how you justify that is still a very horrible precedent to go, a horrible road to go down. Right.
But they are looking to do exactly the same thing with the gay community.
So, does two wrongs make a right?
So,
but again, this is my point. I tend to look at things uniformly. Ooh. If you're going to fight for rights of one particular group, you have to fight for everybody's rights. You got to give everybody the same tools to do it. Now you don't have to agree. Now you don't have to agree with what they stand. You don't have to agree with what they stand for. That's not what I'm saying there. But if they're not hurting anybody, right?
they have as much a right to protest as anybody else.
But
And that's kind of how I see it.
Their thinking wasn't scientific. They went off what was being shown to them from Reddit, from Twitter, from all these other conspiracies.
I'm gonna ask this, and then we're gonna walk away, because I get a feeling that this is where we're gonna get to the agree to disagreement. Yeah. Have you been following what's been going on with the vaccines in other parts of the world?
Like, for example,
for example, have you been following any of the scientific reports from places did you follow what was going on with the government of England's actual detailed analysis of the vaccine? Were you following any of the scientific journals over in Europe and other places in the world while that was going on? Because I'm asking this honestly.
I'm just wondering what proof you have of these. It was something that I would have to actually read myself to know.
I agree. But okay, for example, if you want to go, government of England has a COVID-19 report. They actually recorded everything that had to do with the vaccine, pretty much from inception, and why it was so important with England. Now, they did this up until March of 2022. You can read all the information up until that point. It's a fascinating read. It does not fit the narrative you'll see.
Okay.
Right? Or it does not. It's not just them. You can look up, you can go on Substack, you can look, there are people who have legitimately been looking to this day, are still posting reports and things that are coming out. And these aren't just like random conspiracy websites. These are scientific journals, medical reports, things of that nature.
But people have been claiming that vaccines cause autism, and which has been proven time and time again that it doesn't.
But I'm not talking about vaccines in general. I'm talking about this specific vaccine, the effects, the works, everything that's happened to it.
And everything, even birth control has had this. Bad effects, especially on my own body.
Absolutely, there are side effects to medicines. However, right, in comparison to a lot of other, the thing about this vaccine that was different than, say, a polio vaccine or name your vaccine. It did not go through the same testing process. And what I mean by that is, normally speaking, when a vaccine is introduced into the public, right?
Okay, that's where you're wrong. Okay, so the SARS vaccine, which is where it's from, where Pfizer and Moderna got their vaccines from, is derived from the SARS vaccine.
Okay. Actually, it goes back even farther than that. It goes back to the very first coronavirus back in the 60s. It actually goes all the way back farther. But even when they use derivatives, even when they generally use derivatives of any kind of medicine, there is usually a control group, a test group, and it usually goes for a period of a couple of years, even if it's a derivative, because they want to see if, let's just say for the sake of argument, you take a medicine, okay? It creates a side effect in you. From a legal, just strictly a legal perspective, you want some kind of restitution for the medicine, right? Well, they have a record of what this medicine could do. Like birth control, there is data. There's years and years and decades of data of what a birth control pill can do to you. So if you have a really bad side effect from, say, the birth control pill, right? You can go to the company and say, well, this effect happened to me. I want something for this. And the company can then, and through also the legal process, you can look at, is this a case of, has this happened before? There is a history of that going forward. In this particular case, with the way they did it, they warp sped everything. So the idea, so even now, compared to, say, any other vaccine or any other medicine you'd like to name, let's even take it out. Let's take out the word vaccine, any medicine. There is not the same track record with this thing. There's just not, because instead of going through that process, because of the nature of the emergency at the time, We went straight into putting it in people. So only now are we starting to see some of the effects of this, which we would normally have done through a more constrained testing process.
Okay. Do you believe that there are microchips in the vaccine?
No.
Okay. Do you believe that there are tiny robots put into the vaccines?
There is there's nanotechnology in the vaccine. That's acknowledged. But I mean,
microorganisms is not tiny robots.
No. But again, nanotechnology is in the thing. I'm not saying again. All I'm pointing out to you. This is all I'm saying. That track record doesn't exist. That's all I'm saying.
A lot of people are confusing nanoparticles with nanotech. And that's where the whole confusion of what is in our vaccines are coming from.
I'm not even going there though. All I'm saying, if you're looking at it from a track record point of view, compared to most anything else, this particular vaccine is still by and large new, and we don't have the same level of data. We don't. We are discovering it now because of the nature of how we implemented it. You want to disagree with me if you like, right? But I'm just that's again, and for someone like me, and this is just what I've seen. Then again, it doesn't have to be a vaccine. Mm-hmm. It can be any medicine. It can be painkillers. It can be painkillers. It can be steroids. It can be, you name it. It can be a vitamin, right? I want data, because if I'm taking something different, if you're asking me to take something, I want to honestly be aware of what the potential risks are, right? Going in front of it. I would rather know what they are. Now, if I'd make that decision afterwards, I'm going to take it, then absolutely. But what I feel, and this is just something I have felt, and I know others people have felt too, you cannot make that, there is not an ethical way to do that. Now, you might want to argue that disease was the bigger risk. That's fair. If you want to make that argument, that's cool. I'm with you. But if you're going to look at it, but from again, purely ethical standpoint, it wasn't tested the same way. It's not a precedent I want to encourage going forward, because again, forget vaccine. Just forget the word vaccine in this. It's almost like playing roulette. Down the road, we may do something like this again. And if we do something like this again, the consequences could be bad, really bad. And then what?
If it was presented in a different way, maybe you guys probably would have understood a little bit more. Like, and that's where
I'm just telling you straight up. I've done a lot of research on this. It's not my concern. I mean,
by all means, send me the links to the research that you
Sure, absolutely. If you like,
I'd like to read it and look into it, especially the stuff from England.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that after. We can do that afterwards if you'd like. All I'm saying is that's where a lot of people came from on this, and I can't blame them, considering the history of the medical industry.
Oh.
And
right?
Yeah,
I will.
Yeah.
I will. That's where it is important for us to hold the government accountable. And a lot of times we're not.
Yeah. So, like I said, now again, and I have said this to people on the show, and I'll say this to you, right? People that did what they did, right? People that took it because they thought it was the right thing to do. I'm never going to say yay or nay to you about it, right? You made a decision based on the information you had at the time, and you thought that was the correct choice. I don't hold that against. No one's going to hold that against you.
But at the same time, you guys have to look at what vaccines did help. Like, do we have? We don't have.
Again, I'm not. That's not the debate. That's not the debate. The debate has nothing to do with the word vaccine has almost got a mystical connotation to it. I'm not talking about polio vaccine. I'm not talking about the first one. I can't even remember the name off the top of my head. Not talking measles vaccine. Hell, I'm not even talking a flu shot. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. You have a track record of all those things, right? Right? You have a track record. If you want to look it up, you can look it up. That was not the issue. It has nothing, again, this has nothing to do with the word vaccine.
No, but you guys look at some of the studies of the side effects, and you latch onto just like one or two little side effects.
No, that's not, again, that's not necessarily it either. I have told you, I'm going to repeat this. My issue is very simple. In comparison to most other medicines, the data is only now coming out, and it's still new and it's still being examined, which means that anyone that takes a shot took an unknown risk. That is all I am saying. And the only reason I'm saying it like that is not because it's a vaccine. It's not because it's any of that stuff. It's simply because at the time it was rushed out to people because there was an emergency. And I get that, right? But weighing the risk of that, the risk of the emergency at the moment versus potential consequences now, there was no clear data at the time. And so if people made a choice not to take it, I understood. If people made a choice to take it, I understood as well. Because it's about the risk you choose to mitigate in your life. And I get that. Right? That's where I'm coming from. That's it.
Yeah. And I mean, like the truckers convoy was became
truckers convoy went beyond. Truckers convoy wasn't about the vaccine.
It was they were protesting the mandates.
They were the mandates and specifically the vax pass, which I can understand that. Even if I had made the decision to get the shot, right, still would have been opposed to the vax pass. It's a bad concept.
Like, okay, I will give it to you. Like that was wrong. Yes. I didn't agree with a lot of things that happened around COVID.
No, I mean me neither. But again, I can make the argument. I can make the argument that again, you can make an argument, especially in the first year, right? That maybe we did what you had to do. Canada was harder on it than just about anybody else in the world. But, maybe we did what they had to do. The second year, again, it felt like government overreach as more and more time went on. And I think whether it was a trucker protest or not, something like that was going to happen, right?
But once the mandates did start lifting, the trucker convoy still persisted, and especially in my own city.
Yeah. Oh, no, they persisted. Oh, absolutely. Because again, they were going for it. They spread out.
And then came the political tool of the truckers convoy.
Mm-hmm. Define the political tool. Just for
Maxime Bernier. Sorry, we're going into that. I apologize, but where he made his whole political stand, siding with the truckers and the anti-vaxxers and yeah, just imagine if he had gotten all those votes, what kind of Canada would we be living in today?
I don't know, but I also don't. Here's the thing. I don't have, again, to me personally, this is just where I sit on this, right? I don't think the truckers protest was any different. My dad's from Detroit, okay? Mm-hmm. And he grew up in he was a white kid in a black neighborhood. He was legitimately in one of the neighborhoods where the tanks were rolling through in during the civil rights movement in the 60s.
Okay.
Again, I can look at what happened in India the year before. They did something very similar, in fact, almost to a T, right? It's where I bet you where I think the trucker convoy actually came up with the idea. India, they protested in India for a year. Could you imagine that in New Delhi? Right? No honking, but could you just imagine that? So,
Again, I'm gonna have to look that up and find out what that actually was about.
No, it happened to your part, and I think the irony of that was Trudeau was for it. Like he actually stepped in and stopped the Indian government from doing what we ended up doing here. So that's the thing. Like that's the thing. Again, I didn't watch.
I know we're looking at the situation in two different ways.
We're looking at it from different points of view, and that's fine. You don't have, like, again, strictly speaking, if it was in your neighborhood, especially if it was in your neighborhood, you probably have a very different point of view, and probably rightfully so. It'd be annoying as fuck, right? It'd be annoying as fuck. But something I said earlier, Canadians like order. Like I said this earlier, Canadians prefer order. That was chaos, right?
COVID was freaking chaos.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it on both sides. Let's be honest. It was.
I'm not. Again, I'm not. Listen. My views are my views, but at the same time, again, I have not condemned anyone for looking at it differently. Why would I? Look, you got to look at the end of the day. This is what this is about: good, bad, or indifferent. Agree or disagree. You got to take the information you have.
Yeah.
Right. You got to take the information you have, and you have to make the best decision you can with it. That's it. Yeah. All you can do. Now, does it mean I'm right about everything? Absolutely not. But I'm a big enough man to acknowledge. That I could be wrong. And I'm a big enough man around that my idea of the world is not necessarily the truth. But that means though that everybody has to come to that conclusion on their own as well. And at that moment, okay, we're on very different sides of this equation, right? Very different sides. Did I ever belittle your point?
No.
Did I respect you?
Yeah.
That's it, right? At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Right? We don't have to agree.
I don't have all the answers to this situation.
No.
Like I'm more than willing to see your point of view and see where it comes from.
Yeah. Like I said, I just made it very clear, right? If for me, it was the information presented wasn't enough. That's it. That was my choice.
Yeah.
Right? Other people would, again, at the time, disagreed with me. A lot of people disagreed with me, and I'm good with that. But again, I've seen it far too. Again, just another piece of my background. Dad's a naturopath. One of the things he ended up dealing with all the time, were people with side effects to other medicines have. So this is a bias I truly admit to having. You see enough of that, you're never going to jump in quickly, no matter what it is, right? Yeah. And if it had been something, and in all fairness, if it had been fully and truly to my benefit, right, I missed out, right? Yeah. And I have to live with that choice.
Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm just making sure you're all right. Because
I just didn't. What came of the whole situation, though, it has become very politicized.
Oh no, absolutely. And we're
still like we're the ideology, like from being anti-vax and.
But except this is where I want to correct you on this is. I'm not being anti-vax. That's where I'm not being anti-vax at all. My point is, again, you can take the word vaccine out. Doesn't matter to me. Any medicine, I thoroughly believe this. If we're putting something into the body that's supposed to help, right? Yes, some things have side effects, but they're usually measured and quantified in a way that people can understand it and make a very clear, conscious choice of what the risk is.
Yeah.
That did not happen here, right? There's 60 years of information on a coronavirus, on this vaccine. If you go all the way back to the very first coronavirus back in the 60s, when they were doing this stuff back then, there's tons of information about the derivatives they've used. But even with derivatives, you test. I truly believe in that, especially with medical stuff, because I've seen far too. I don't know about you. I've seen many of these commercials. Did you use this medicine in between the years 1985 and to 1995? Well, good news. You could be entitled for a settlement. Just call this number right here. I've seen.
I absolutely hate those.
But that's my point, right? That's my point, right? It has nothing to do with right. I look at that. That's where I am. It's not that I'm anti-vax. I don't want to be one of those dudes that's 70 years old that's halfway brain damage picking up the phone. Listen, if I cause my own brain damage, I'm good with it. I can live with that. It's like I fucked up, screwed up, did my thing.
Yeah.
Right? I made a choice. I made my choices, made my consequences. If I take something that I don't know what it does to me, I don't have any way of making that decision, right? I just have to make a gamble and a guess. I would resent that personally.
Yeah.
And then again, it's not even vaccine. It's just, right? It's anything, right? So it's an antidepressant, it's a steroid, it's a birth control thing, it's any of those things. Now, if I hear the risk, if I know the risk, I acknowledge the risk, I make a decision, and shit happens to me later, well, goddamn, then. But I knew what I signed up for.
Yeah.
So right, that's the difference. I think, just from an ideological standpoint, like people like me, ask why. Some people you'll get the whole diatribe, but you would be very surprised how many people just share this very simple point.
I looked into what was presented to me as the facts on the vaccine before I took it.
Yeah, and that's all. And again, and like I told you earlier, that's fine, right? There's no crime in that. You made the best decision with what you thought was going to be the correct choice at the time, and maybe it was. I'm not even disputing that with you. Maybe it was, right? But again, strictly speaking, to me personally, it wasn't. Not at the time, especially with what I was reading in other parts of the world. So,
unfortunately, there's medication that is being that was banned here that is being used still in
and vice versa,
like India
and vice versa. It happens all the time. What happens there is in those particular circumstances, ask why. But that is a bigger conversation because that is the pharmaceutical industry as a whole. And
there's been questionable issues with the
questionable is not the word, right? Beyond questionable, like some things that sometimes damning. Yeah,
I'm not condemning you for asking questions why and all that. It's just the certain situations that came of COVID
Can I offer a closing thought? That's something that may make this fear was the real infection.
Yeah,
fear was the real infection.
Absolutely.
And it goes both ways. I have a healthy fear of what this might do, whether it does anything to me or not. I have a healthy fear and respect, right? But at the same time, there's also a fear of contact, that we might all get this disease. And we were in a period of excess fear for years, and it brings out the worst in people. It really does. Not every stance or standpoint, right? Not every stance or standpoint. And again, going back to something I said earlier to you, we're not going to agree necessarily on what the right choice was, but we don't have to.
No.
right? All we really have to do is go, okay, where are you coming from? Right?
It the the government was able to control kind of both aspects.
Absolutely.
They knew
No, no,
how,
no, don't get
they
yourself.
knew
Yeah,
how to
absolutely.
fear and make us fear each other, essentially.
Yeah,
And we're still healing from that.
absolutely. No,
And,
absolutely. Uh, um, absolutely. I'm not scared, but no, I'm not. Like
uh, I wanted to get on with going back to normal as fast as possible. I mean,
yep,
I wanted.
and that was the dangling carrot. It like the reality is it's never going to go back to the way it was. But but okay, fun thought here.
Mhm.
But is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, we were waxing nostalgia earlier about the 90s, like the 2000s and 2010s. It wasn't all fun and games, right? But I mean, even now, like, okay, we can still um, how do I put this? Um, we can still make a better world. We're talking about the fact that we're not willing to fight, like we are, or a generation more afraid to fight. That's not true. I want to create a better world, but I also realize that what's going to happen is in this next phase of the world is our ideas of what a good world's going to be is going to be a lot more decentralized. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Your needs and my needs are different. And
Yeah,
that's right. And that's totally fine. Right? That's totally fine. What 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 isn't fine is I should give you the freedom to do what you think is right. And you should give me the freedom to do what I think is right
yeah,
without the risk of consequence one way or the other. Not a pass that guarantees that one group has access and one does not, but rather, okay, this is what I feel is right, and I'm going to do it this way. And I'm going to be like, that's fine. This is what I feel is right. I'm going to do it this way. And then I
yeah,
go like, and then this is what I go like to you. Good luck.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Not the talk I expected to have with you at the end.
I'm sorry if I didn't mean to push it in that direction.
No. It's fine. Look, so do you want to hear my ninth rule? Actually, so this is what the pandemic taught me:
Mhm.
be detached from all outcomes. And the reason that's important is this kind of conversation, because you have an idea how the world works. I have an idea how the world works. Doesn't mean I'm right.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you're right. What it means is we have an idea. We were able to have a discussion. We still, I think, largely disagree, which is totally fine. Right. But it's the letting go of the idea that we're necessarily both correct.
yeah,
It's rather the idea of, can I be open enough to listen? That's it.
yeah.
And if you're open enough to listen, that's
Like
all.
I've been open to hearing uh, both sides, and it's a lot of
It's
what I'm finding is the fear that one group has, and yes, we have our own group fear of how this whole pandemic panned out,
yeah.
and I'm still trying to understand how we our minds went so split.
Because would you like an honest answer?
Mhm.
Okay, we said this earlier. Government isn't transparent or honest. Okay,
Yeah,
you agree with that?
yeah,
Okay, so here's what happened here. This is what happened. You said it yourself. You wanted to go back to normal. Now, there was probably a point in during the pandemic that the fear of the fear that you might never get back to normal again, crept in. And when it did, you decided, the decision you made is you wanted to get back to that normal. A guy like me, who had the same fear happen to me, again, because there's no consensus. This is the important thing about this. There's no consensus. Went the other way. Well, what kind of world can we make? Is normal being gone a bad thing? Right? It's just simply looking at the same question with a different answer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it was. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting things to go back to normal. There's not. Right? There's nothing wrong with wanting something different either. The question then becomes where do you and I meet in the middle? And where both sides have to kind of come to terms with is, what ideas do we have that are fiction? Because we both have them.
Yeah.
And are you willing to let those go? That's the discomforting part. Now, that's the real discomforting part, because what if I have a point? What if I show you this information? You're going to be like, this is a frick ton of information. This is going to take a while to get through. It's like, yeah. And you're going to come to a certain point and you're going to be like, I can see why you walked. If you go down,
I'm just looking at it in like a psychological.
Yeah,
sense.
no. But again,
yeah.
this is the psychology of it. The psychology is, right, what here's the other thing. During that time, do you remember all the trust the science stuff? Trust the science,
Yeah.
trust science, trust science, trust science. There's two ways of looking at that. Number one, you can have faith that the people in charge are knowing what they're doing. Or you could also believe that they are trying to get you to shut up and just do what you're told. And if you see it the other way, eventually what would happen is you would start looking for your own answers, because now you don't trust the answers you're being given.
Did you talk to any doctors about this?
Absolutely. I asked doctors. So for me, I went to doctors. I checked out Substack, a lot of Substack stuff, because Twitter and Facebook made it very difficult to really say anything. That was the other part of it. Censorship doesn't make things better; it makes it worse. Having an open dialogue for ideas is the best way to kill them. Right? It's only if you censor something, you actually make it more desirable to learn. So what ended up happening with me was, so at first the doctors over here said, take it. And then around July, I said one doctor I talked to said, you can take it now, no problem. Can I wait a while? This is before everything went nuts. He's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No, I some of the concerns I explained. No, I'm not naming names because I don't want any problems with the doctor. It's like, no, I get where you're coming from. Like, yeah, give it a few months if you want. It'll still be here when you want it. All right, this was in Windsor. And then I saw what happened in Israel in July, and that kind of made my decision not to take it. That was like my final straw, and that's when everything kind of went nuts. And here, in regards to it, so I'd already kind of seen where I already had an opinion where it was likely to go based on other countries that had it first, because I wasn't just watching. I was looking at the countries that got it first, because they were likely. Human biology is the same everywhere. If Israel had issues with the vaccine, say because they did it in January, and England did it in like the same time, well, if there's any problems with the vaccine, they're going to show up there first, and it makes sense, right? Because they did first. So I was watching what was going on there, and I was using that to base my decision points. And because you have a live sample and a live round, right? So why not do that? other things I was looking at, what the FDA was doing in September when they were considering the first booster shot. I watched all 6 hours of it. Yeah. Right. I was reading what preprints I could find. Right. Just now again, the flaw of the preprints are they're preprints. They're not peer reviewed. But this is what I mean when I'm talking about new technology. They hadn't done these big studies. So I had to go with, so everybody was just going with what was coming and what was available at the time. So this was the stuff I was looking at myself of making these decisions. Right. And when the vaccine, the first 2 shots didn't work in Israel the way they did, I was like, why would a third? Why would a fourth? Right? Same in England. England had collapsed around the same time. So that told me what happened to us in the wintertime with Omicron was almost preordained to happen, because we had a pattern I had a pattern to go by.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was what made that's what made my decision. Why am I going to take something that I'm not sure is going to work? Or how many shots is it going to take for it to work? Right? So, and again, there are mitigating risks with each shot as well. Because it was designed for it to be a 2-shot program.
Yeah.
So, third shot, I know why Israel did it first. They were doing it because it was an emergency. Then they went to the 4th shot before anybody else did. So, I mean, I was watching this the whole time. But again, so I wasn't really listening to the media stuff over here. I was legitimately looking at the results going on literally in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was where I made my decisions. Right? I wasn't looking necessarily here. I was looking at who was already on the cutting edge. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at the time going, whoa.
Oh, okay. I also kind of feel I rattled you a little bit.
No. I'm fine. It's just how I process.
But that's what I did. Like folks, legitimately, that's what I did. I didn't fault anyone who made the decision to take it either. I just simply was looking at what was going on, because I tend to look before I leap.
Yeah.
And
I do the same thing. Like I try to, especially when it came to some of the medications that I was prescribed. Like when I was in foster care, I was forced to be on Paxil.
Oh God.
For anxiety, and because my foster mom hated the fact that I shook my leg.
I'm sorry. I really
that was just something that I do because I'm an anxious person.
So, Willow, now that you've listened to kind of where I'm coming from, do I sound insane?
No.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
But
you can disagree with me.
I didn't like the fact that I was being forced to take a medication I had nothing to go on about. When I moved out of my foster home, I stopped taking the medication, and oddly enough, yes, I still have anxiety, but it was less after moving out of my foster home.
Yeah, less stress. Okay, this went a whole hour longer than I planned it to go. No. So I just want to say this. I just want to ask this question. Are we good? Like,
yes.
Are we still good? Are we good?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it became a political conversation.
I don't consider this a political. I didn't consider this political.
Okay.
I asked you about the trucker protest and where you stood with it and why you stood where you stood, right? And that's fine. Like, look, again, and I get this. I'm in the minority of Canadians on that point. Mm-hmm. And I'm fine.
I like knowing why. Like where people's thinking of that is. Like,
Yeah,
I've been trying to figure this out, figure
well,
out
yeah. To me,
as a psychological sense, like
yeah,
why we thought two different ways.
yeah. And does where it sound like makes sense? I'm
Yeah.
just asking. I mean, does it make right now? Again, I'm not justifying extremes. Because that's not where I'm going with this. I'm just simply going because again, we can go both ways on that one, right? There are extremes on the other end of this too. It's just like you're kidding me, right? But that all said, right? That all said, I say it like this. I say it like this, just like this, just to point out. I can't again. I don't blame people for making choices as long as they think they were doing the right thing. I don't. I never fault anybody for that. Where I have always will find fault with people is if they're trying to force other people to make their choice for them.
Yeah.
Right. You might even though sometimes you might be right. You gotta let people make their own conclusions, and otherwise it will.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is what happens.
And I feel the same thing. Like, I don't believe that, you know, religion should have anything to do with being in politics. Religion shouldn't keep your religion. You can believe. I will listen to all kinds of people talk about their religion. I will gladly listen and learn from every religion, but do not force that upon me.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that growing up in foster care again, you know, I had to put up with a lot of the Christian ideology.
Yeah, and that's fine. I don't fault. Again, same thing. I don't fault you for walking in your shoes,
Mhm.
and I will never do that. I will encourage you to be brave enough to walk in the shoes you know you should be walking.
Yeah.
Be happy to find your happiness and to find your goals. But
I'm sorry that it seemed like that I was mad or anyway.
I didn't feel you were mad. I felt like I rattled you a little bit. I surprised you and rattled you, and right, that's what I felt like. And again, my perspective, as you just listened to me, it's my own rationale, and I think it's a fairly rational point of view, right? It's not. Again, I don't really care. It's a vaccine, right? It make me take anything I don't want to take, and give me no concrete whatever. I'm not doing it. And that's just me, right? And that's really my whole argument, right? And people and there are people who may listen to this and or watch this and disagree with me on that, but that's fine. I'm not forcing you to do what you want to do, right? And I never will. Like, to me, that is truly unethical. So that's where I'm at. Right, that's where I'm at. All right, so let's end this with a plug somewhere. So what do you want to plug?
Okay, so you guys can watch me Saturday mornings on Back of the Cereal Box. I am on YouTube as well. I'm all over social media, quite honest. Just search up my name.
So where can you be found?
I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
Whoa. No, that's not what I meant. Like What's your handle?
Oh, pretty much Willow Skylor for everything.
Everything's Willow Skylor?
Yeah.
Where are you most common?
Facebook.
So facebook.com/Willow Skylor?
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on a second here. Let's see if I got this right. I should. Your name's right there. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, folks.
So Saturday mornings I go live on YouTube and Facebook with Back of the Cereal Box. You can find me also coming up next Sunday with Cryptid Crunch, where I talk about myths, monsters, and all kinds of interesting creatures.
Mm-hmm. And that, folks, is that. So I'm going to make it once again. This was an unexpectedly deep dive into things on the second politics in the second hour, a little bit, but also just about personal ideologies. And I hope this conversation, if you are listening or watching this, is to tell you that you can have a different point of view and still have a conversation and not, I hate you because
no, like I have in the last couple of years have gone into a more political stance with things. So yeah, if you guys don't like politics, if you want to stay away from it, maybe not follow me on Facebook. But
well, the only thing I will tell you, Willow, is like you can be as political as you like. Always remember, always remember that like your ideas aren't the only ideas out there.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that, you can be as political as you want. How we talk.
I do welcome healthy debates, and
yeah.
So
that's literally what we did. So there you go, folks. That was the conversation. I'm on Patreon right now. My next episode drops Monday there. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys Monday.